King Zenos, the feared ruler of the Fangi Empire, stood in the heart of his flagship, his cold reptilian eyes gazing out at the vastness of space. The silence of the stars seemed to mock him, a sharp contrast to the chaos that had unfolded just hours before. Reports streamed in from the remnants of his once mighty fleet, each one more damning than the last. What should have been a routine mission, an exercise in showing the galaxy the might of the Fangi, had turned into a nightmare. His vast armada, which had subjugated countless worlds, lay in ruins. And the cause of this disaster? A lone human ship, a vessel that should have been insignificant in the grand scheme of things, had defied all logic and reason. How had this happened? The ship, sleek and almost ethereal in its design, had danced through the battlefield with an agility that seemed almost supernatural. Its weapons, far from the crude projectile-based systems that the Fangi had dismissed as primitive, had sliced through the Fangi fleet's defenses with terrifying precision. Each blast of its energy weapons had torn through the hulls of Zenos' ships as if they were made of paper, and even the most advanced shielding technology the Fangi had to offer was rendered useless. One by one, Zenos' ships had fallen, their crews reduced to atoms in the void of space, until only his flagship remained, battered and smoking but still operational, if only barely. The humiliation was almost unbearable for Zenos. This was not just a defeat, it was an annihilation, a complete and utter rout. The humans, a species the Fangi had always considered beneath them, had somehow developed technology that was centuries, perhaps millennia, ahead of anything in the Fangi arsenal. The thought gnawed at him, a festering wound to his pride. How could these upstart primates have achieved such power? For the first time in his reign, Zenos felt a cold shiver of fear. If the humans had this kind of technology, what else were they capable of? What other secrets did they hide on that blue and green speck of a planet they called Earth? But fear quickly gave way to anger, a boiling, all-consuming rage that threatened to engulf him. This defeat was unacceptable. He had not clawed his way to the top of the Fangi hierarchy to be humiliated by a single human ship. No, this was merely a setback. The humans might have won this battle, but the war was far from over. Zenos would have his revenge. He would uncover the secrets of Earth's advanced technology, and when he did, he would use it to crush the humans once and for all. The galaxy would once again bow to the might of the Fangi Empire, and those who had dared to laugh at his defeat would be made to suffer. With a snarl, Zenos turned to his command console and barked orders to his subordinates. Prepare the infiltration team. I want our best agents on this mission. We will penetrate human space, find out how they managed to build such a powerful weapon, and then we will turn it against them. I want every piece of technology they have. Nothing is to be left behind. His eyes blazed with a cold fury as he continued, and once we have what we need, we will show the humans what it truly means to face the wrath of the Fangi. The command deck buzzed with activity as his orders were relayed throughout the ship. Even as his fleet lay in ruins, Zenos' iron will kept his remaining forces in line. They knew the cost of failure. They had seen what happened to those who disappointed their king. And so, they moved with a grim determination, each one knowing that their very survival depended on the success of this mission. There would be no more mistakes, no more surprises. The humans had caught them off guard once, but it would not happen again. As the infiltration team prepared for their mission, Zenos' mind raced with possibilities. The humans' technology was unlike anything he had ever seen. The Fangi had always prided themselves on their advancements, on being the apex species in the galaxy, but this human ship had shattered that illusion. There had to be more to it. Perhaps the humans had discovered some ancient alien technology, something from a long-dead civilization that they had reverse-engineered. Or maybe they had allies, powerful allies who had supplied them with these weapons. Zenos was determined to find out. The infiltration team was led by Agent Zara, one of the Fangi's most skilled operatives. Her reputation was legendary. She had infiltrated the most secure installations across the galaxy, slipping in and out without a trace. If anyone could uncover the secrets of human technology, it was her. Zara was a cold, calculating figure, her loyalty to Zenos absolute. She had been handpicked for this mission, and failure was not an option. As the team boarded their cloaked shuttle, Zara reviewed the mission parameters one last time. Their target was a human military outpost on the planet Nova Prime, a key installation rumored to house advanced technological research. The plan was simple: infiltrate the outpost, locate the technology, and extract it. But Zara knew better than anyone that no plan ever survived contact with the enemy. The humans had already proven themselves to be formidable opponents, and she wasn't about to underestimate them. The shuttle slipped through space undetected, its cloaking technology rendering it invisible to the human sensors. As they approached Nova Prime, Zara felt a strange sense of unease. She had been on countless missions, but something about this one felt different. The humans had already proven they were not to be underestimated, and she knew that this mission would be the most dangerous one she had ever undertaken. But there was no turning back now. The shuttle descended through the planet's atmosphere, landing in a remote area far from the prying eyes of the human military. Zara and her team disembarked, their disguises in place. They were refugees, fleeing the oppressive rule of the Fangi Empire, a story that was all too believable given the recent upheaval within the Empire. The spaceport at Nova Prime was a bustling hub of activity, a melting pot of species from across the galaxy. Zara and her team moved through the crowded terminal, blending in with the throng of alien refugees. The acrid stench of ion exhaust mixed with the exotic aromas of alien cuisines, creating a sensory overload that Zara had to consciously block out. She couldn't afford to be distracted. The success of the mission depended on her ability to remain focused. Their contact was a gruff alien named Jax, a smuggler who had made a fortune trading in illicit goods. He was waiting for them in a nondescript warehouse on the outskirts of the spaceport, his eyes gleaming with avarice as he outlined the plan. "It'll cost you," Jax said, rubbing his fingers together in the universal gesture for money. Zara didn't flinch. "Fangi gold spends just as well as any other currency," she replied coolly, already striding towards the hangar bay where their transport awaited. She had no time for haggling. The sooner they got what they needed, the sooner they could get off this planet and back to the safety of Fangi space. Days later, under the cover of darkness, Zara and her team crept through the shadows of the human military outpost. The outpost was a sprawling complex of reinforced bunkers and high-tech security systems, but Zara had studied the blueprints meticulously. She knew where the weak points were, and she led her team through the maze of corridors with practiced precision. Alarms blared suddenly, piercing the silence of the night. Zara cursed under her breath. They had been discovered. There was no time to question how the humans had detected them. The only option now was to complete the mission and get out alive. Commander Ramirez, a veteran of countless battles, burst into the secure weapons lab, his plasma rifle raised. "Freeze!" he shouted, his voice cutting through the chaos. But Zara was already in motion. Her reflexes were honed by years of training, and she dodged the incoming fire with ease. A firefight erupted, the air crackling with the energy blasts of Fangi and human weapons. The stolen prototype was within reach, its sleek design hinting at the advanced technology within. Zara snatched it up, her scales slick with sweat as she fought to reach the exit. Jax, their contact, appeared in the doorway, his face contorted with desperation. "This way!" he shouted, gesturing wildly towards the exit. The two men grappled fiercely, each one trying to gain the upper hand. Zara didn't wait to see who would win. She was already sprinting towards the shuttle, the prototype clutched tightly to her chest. Plasma bolts sizzled past her head as she dove into the shuttle, the engines roaring to life. They had done it. They had stolen the humans' precious technology. But as the shuttle streaked away from the outpost, Zara couldn't shake the feeling that they had only delayed the inevitable confrontation. The humans would come for them, and when they did, they would be ready. Back on Zax's Prime, King Zenos paced his opulent throne room, his scales rippling with anticipation. The stolen human weapon had arrived, and his scientists were already analyzing its secrets. The thought of using this technology to crush the humans filled him with a malevolent glee. But even as Zenos plotted his next move, Captain Nathaniel Davis, commander of the human warship Icarus, had already begun to unravel the threads of the enemy's plan. Davis was no stranger to combat. He had risen through the ranks not by chance, but by sheer willpower and tactical brilliance. The destruction of Zenos' fleet had been no accident. It had been a carefully orchestrated maneuver, one that had left the Fangi reeling. And now, as the Fangi plotted their revenge, Davis knew that the true battle for galactic supremacy was only beginning. As the Icarus cruised through the black void of space, its sleek hull reflecting the distant starlight, Davis stood on the bridge, his piercing gaze fixed on the stars beyond. The Fangi would come for their technology, he was certain of that. But they would find more than they bargained for. Earth was not some backwater planet ripe for the taking. It was a fortress, and its people were warriors, forged in the fires of countless battles. They had faced extinction before, and each time they had emerged stronger. The crew of the Icarus was tense, their eyes darting to the various screens and readouts that lined the bridge. They trusted Davis implicitly, but they also knew the stakes. The fate of the galaxy could hinge on the outcome of the next few days. Davis turned to his second-in-command, Lieutenant Chen, and gave a curt nod. "Prepare the ship for battle," he ordered. "We're going to make sure the Fangi regret ever setting foot in human space." Back on Zax Prime, Zenos was in the midst of a heated discussion with his top advisors. The situation was more dire than he had anticipated. Whispers of rebellion were growing louder among the subjugated worlds, and the Galactic Council was openly questioning his competence. The once unquestioned ruler of the Fangi Empire was now facing the very real possibility of being overthrown. Grand Vizier Mal Rock, his scaled features twisted into a sneer, leaned forward in his seat. "Perhaps, my king, it is time to consider alternative leadership. Someone who can restore our rightful place in the galaxy." Zenos whirled on Mal Rock, his clawed hand twitching towards the ornate plasma pistol at his side. "You dare question my rule? I should have your forked tongue ripped out for such treachery." But before Zenos could act on his threat, General Cragg, sensing the dangerous shift in the room, quickly interjected. "My king, I have a plan to regain the upper hand. Allow me to assemble a team of our finest spies, led by the incomparable Agent Zara. They will infiltrate the human worlds, steal their technological secrets, and deliver them into your hands." Zenos paused, his reptilian eyes narrowing as he considered the proposal. The name of his nemesis, Captain Nathaniel Davis, echoed in his mind like a curse. But even as the Fangi agents began their work, Davis was already one step ahead. He had anticipated the Fangi's move, and he was prepared. The Icarus had been outfitted with the latest in human technology, a blend of engineering genius and military prowess that would give them the edge they needed. As the forces of the Fangi Empire and the fledgling human alliance maneuvered in a deadly game of espionage and brinksmanship, the future of the stars hung in the balance. And in the shadows, ancient powers stirred, their enigmatic agendas yet to be revealed in the looming conflict that would reshape the very fabric of the universe. The bustling spaceport of Nova Prime teemed with a kaleidoscope of alien life, each species going about their business, unaware of the high-stakes game being played out in the shadows. Agent Zara's scales rippled with unease as she led her team through the crowded terminal, their refugee disguises holding up under the scrutiny of bored customs officials. The acrid stench of ion exhaust mingled with the exotic aromas of a dozen different species' cuisines, assaulting Zara's sensitive olfactory glands. "Remember," she hissed to her team, "we are victims fleeing Fangi oppression. Stay in character." They melted into the diverse throng, their true purpose concealed beneath layers of carefully crafted deception. Zara's eyes darted across the sea of faces, searching for their contact. A gruff voice cut through the din. "Follow me!" Jax grunted, leading them through winding back alleys to a nondescript warehouse. Inside, crates of illicit weapons lined the walls. Jax's eyes gleamed with avarice as he outlined his plan to infiltrate the nearby military outpost. "It'll cost you," he said, rubbing his fingers together. "Fangi gold spends as well as any other currency," Zara replied, already striding towards the hangar bay. She had no time for haggling. The sooner they got what they needed, the sooner they could get off this planet and back to the safety of Fangi space. Days later, as Zara and her team crept through the shadows of the human military outpost, alarms blared. Commander Ramirez burst into the secure weapons lab, his plasma rifle raised. "Freeze!" he shouted, but Zara was already in motion. Ramirez dove for cover, returning fire as he shouted into his comm unit. "This is Commander Ramirez. We have a code red, Fangi infiltrators in the weapons lab." The firefight intensified, Fangi and human soldiers trading salvos of deadly energy. Zara clutched the stolen prototype to her chest, her scales slick with sweat as she fought to reach the exit. Jax Moreno appeared in the doorway, his face contorted with desperation. "This way!" he shouted, gesturing wildly. The two men grappled fiercely, buying precious seconds for the F. Ramirez finally subdued Jax, slamming him to the ground. "Why?" he demanded, his voice raw with anger and exertion. Jax coughed, blood speckling his lips. "Sometimes you gotta pick a side," he wheezed. "Even if it's the wrong one." On Zax's prime, King Zenos paced his opulent throne room, his scales overflowing with anticipation. A holographic projection flickered to life, displaying General Cragg's serpentine visage. "My king," Cragg reported, "Agent Zara has succeeded. The human weapon is ours." Zenos' eyes gleamed with malevolent glee. "Excellent. Begin analysis immediately and intensify our espionage efforts. I want every scrap of human technology laid bare before me." As the projection faded, Zenos turned to gaze out at the glittering expanse of his empire. Beneath the veneer of triumph, a seed of doubt took root. What other secrets did the humans possess? And how long could he maintain his grip on power in the face of growing unrest? The stolen weapon was only the beginning. The true battle for galactic supremacy loomed on the horizon, with humanity and the Fangi Empire hurtling towards an inevitable collision. Agent Zara's breath came in ragged gasps as she and her two surviving operatives crashed through the dense underbrush of Nova Prime's wilderness. The stolen prototype weapon pulsed against her chest, its unfamiliar energy signature setting her nerve endings on fire. Behind them, the shouts of Commander Ramirez's pursuit team grew fainter, but Zara knew they weren't safe yet. "We need to find shelter," she hissed to her companions. "Our supplies are almost gone." As if in answer, a figure materialized from the shadows ahead. Zara raised her blaster, but the newcomer held up empty hands. "I am Varia," the alien said, her luminescent eyes fixed on the prototype. "We've been watching you, Agent Zara. You need our help, and we need that weapon." Exhausted and out of options, Zara nodded grimly. "Lead the way." Varia guided them through a hidden network of caves to a makeshift rebel outpost. Banks of cobbled-together computer terminals lined the walls, while haggard-looking aliens of various species huddled around strategy tables. "Let's see this human weapon," Varia said, extending a hand. Reluctantly, Zara surrendered the prototype. Varia's team of engineers immediately set to work, their excited chatter filling the cavern as they probed its secrets. "Incredible," one of them muttered. "This directed energy system, it could tear through our strongest shields without difficulty." Varia's eyes narrowed. "If Zenos gets his claws on this, he'll be unstoppable." She turned to Zara, her expression hard. "We have a proposition. Help us use this prototype to lure Zenos into a trap. We'll cripple his forces and deal a blow to his empire." "Incoming transmission." A rebel technician called out. "It's from the human ship Icarus." Varia cursed. "They're tracking us somehow. We need to move now!" As the rebels scrambled to evacuate, another alert sounded. A rebel scout's panicked voice crackled over the comms. "Multiple Fangi warships entering the system. They're led by General Cragg's flagship." Zara felt the blood drain from her face. Cragg was here. The notorious hunter-killer would stop at nothing to secure the prototype for Zenos. "We're out of time," Varia snapped. "Are you with us, Agent Zara? Will you help us spring our trap on Zenos?" Zara's mind raced, weighing her options as the cavern erupted into chaos. The stolen prototype hummed against her scales, a constant reminder of the power she held. With a sharp nod to Varia, she made her decision. "I'm in. Let's take down Zenos!" Varia's luminescent eyes flashed with approval. "Move out to the emergency shuttles!" The ragtag group of rebels scrambled through winding tunnels as alarms blared. Zara and her two Fangi operatives fell in line, their refugee disguises discarded. As they emerged onto a hidden landing pad, a barrage of plasma fire erupted from the tree line. "Incoming!" Cragg bellowed, his massive frame providing cover as rebels returned fire. Zara clutched the prototype, diving into the nearest shuttle. The engines roared to life, lifting off just as a human strike team breached the perimeter. Through the viewport, she glimpsed Commander Ramirez, his face contorted with fury as the shuttles escaped into the atmosphere. Hours later, Zara stood on the bridge of an aging freighter, repurposed as the rebels' mobile base. A holographic star map flickered before her, Varia's finger tracing their trajectory. "We'll rendezvous with our main force here," Varia explained, indicating a remote asteroid base. "Then we strike at the heart of Zenos' empire." Crag's scarred face, etched with suspicion, loomed over Zara. "And how do we know we can trust you, Fangi?" Zara met his gaze unflinchingly. "Zenos is as much my enemy as yours. I've seen firsthand the suffering he's inflicted across the galaxy." "Evasive maneuvers," Varia shouted, gripping the command console as the freighter vanished into hyperspace. Tensions aboard the ISS Icarus reached a fever pitch. Captain Davis paced the bridge, Alta's warning echoing in his mind. The view screen flickered to life, revealing the stern faces of the Galactic Council's tribunal. Davis's teeth gritted. "Understood, Counselor. We'll contain the situation." Meanwhile, on Zenos' flagship, the king seethed with anger. "My king," Crag reported, "we've tracked the rebels to the outer rim. My hunter squad stands ready to retrieve the prototype and crush this insurgency." As Crag departed, Zenos sank back into his throne. Outside, the first ships of his mighty Armada began to assemble for the parade. Soon, he would remind the galaxy of Fangi supremacy, and woe to any who dared stand in his way. The rebel freighter dropped out of hyperspace above Zax's prime, its hull scarred from recent battles. On the bridge, Varia surveyed the planet's glittering cityscape, her luminescent eyes narrowed. "There," she said, gesturing to a holographic map. "The parade route passes through the central square. We'll set up the prototype here on the roof of the Commerce Guild building." Zara nodded, her scales rippling with nervous energy. "My team can provide overwatch and warn of any incoming security forces." As the rebels prepared for their daring assault, the streets of Zax's Prime's capital swelled with cheering crowds. Fangi citizens waved banners emblazoned with Zenos' image, their scales gleaming in the harsh sunlight. High above, in his opulent flagship, King Zenos preened before a gilded mirror. "Is everything ready, Malrock?" he asked his aide. Malrock bowed low, his eyes betraying nothing. "Of course, Your Majesty." "The parade awaits your glorious presence." "Target acquired," Zara whispered into her comm unit. "Awaiting your order, Varia." In the streets below, General Craig's eyes darted suspiciously from shadow to shadow. Something felt off, but he couldn't place it. As Zenos' transport touched down, Craig's hand instinctively tightened on his disruptor pistol. The instant Zenos emerged, resplendent in his ceremonial armor, Varia's voice crackled through the rebel comms. "Now." Zara activated the prototype, a blinding beam of energy lancing out, slicing through the transport's shields like they were tissue paper. The vehicle's repulsor engines sputtered and died, leaving Zenos trapped inside the smoking wreck. Chaos erupted. Rebel strike teams converged on the square, exchanging fire with Fangi security forces. Civilians scattered, their celebratory cheers replaced by screams of terror. Crag bellowed orders, rallying his troops to form a protective cordon around the disabled transport. "Protect the king at all costs." From a nearby alleyway, Captain Davis and his strike team emerged, their Federation-issue phasers set to heavy stun. "Move in!" Davis shouted. "Secure that prototype." Caught in the crossfire, Zara and her team fought desperately to hold their position. The prototype's energy reserves were dangerously low after its powerful blast. Suddenly, a series of explosions rocked the government district. Malrock's voice boomed from every communication device in the city. "People of the Fangi Empire, the tyrant Zenos has fallen. I, Malrock, now assume control for the good of all Fangi." Amidst the growing bedlam, Varia led a small team towards Zenos' smoking transport. They fought through waves of security forces, inching closer to their prize. On the roof, Zara watched in horror as Federation troops advanced on her position. The prototype was moments away from overheating, its unstable energy core on the verge of detonation. "Varia!" she shouted into her comm. "We're about to lose the weapon. Whatever you're going to do it now." Below, Varia's team finally reached the transport. They wrenched open the twisted hatch to find King Zenos dazed but alive, as they dragged the protesting monarch from the wreckage. Captain Davis's voice cut through the din. Varia hesitated for a split second, then made her decision. "Fall back to the extraction point," she ordered. "We've got what we came for." As rebel forces began their fighting retreat, Zara realized she had no choice. She aimed the unstable prototype at the advancing Federation troops and pulled the trigger one last time. The weapon discharged in a blinding flash of light and searing heat, forcing Davis and his team to take cover. When the energy dissipated, the prototype was a smoking ruin, but it had bought the rebels the precious seconds they needed. Zara sprinted for the waiting shuttle, plasma bolts sizzling past her head. In the streets below, General Cragg watched in disbelief as rebel ships lifted off, carrying both King Zenos and the mutinous Mal Rock. His troops were in disarray, torn between conflicting loyalties and the urge for self-preservation. The rebel fleet dropped out of hyperspace, their engines flaring as they decelerated towards a barren, rust-colored moon. Aboard the lead ship, Zara watched as Varia paced the cramped bridge, her luminescent eyes fixed on the interface. "Welcome to our new home," Varia said, gesturing to the desolate landscape below, "at least until we decide what to do with our guest." In the cargo hold, King Zenos sat in a force field cell, his once regal armor scuffed and dented. He glowered at his captors, scales rippling with awe-inspiring fury. As the rebels established their base over the following days, tensions simmered. Zara overheard heated arguments between Varia and her lieutenants, their voices echoing through the prefab corridors. "We need to execute him publicly," one hardliner insisted. "Show the galaxy the price of tyranny." Varia's voice was measured but firm. "And martyr him? No. We negotiate. Use him to ensure a peaceful transition." The disagreements grew more frequent, more volatile. Zara found herself caught between factions, her loyalty tested by the hardliners' passionate rhetoric. Across the stars, General Cragg stood on the bridge of his flagship, surveying a holographic map of Fangi space. Red indicators flashed, marking system after system falling to Malrock's forces. "Status report," Cragg barked. A junior officer saluted. "Sir, House Duras has pledged their support. Their fleet awaits your command." Cragg's mandibles clicked in satisfaction. "Excellent. Prepare the Armada. We'll start with the outer rim and work our way in." The general's eyes narrowed as he studied the rebel-controlled sectors. "Hold on, Your Majesty," he muttered. "We're coming." On the ISS Icarus, Captain Davis sat alone in his ready room, the weight of the Galactic Council's latest communique heavy on his shoulders. The words on his datapad blurred as he considered the implications. A chime at his door broke his reverie. "Enter." Commander Ramirez stepped in, his face grim. "Sir, we've received a priority transmission." "It's Varia." Davis's eyebrows shot up. "Put her through." Hours later, as the Icarus cruised through an asteroid field, Davis brought his senior staff up to speed. "We're taking a risk," he concluded, "but I believe aiding Varia is our best chance for long-term stability." As if in response to his words, the ship rocked violently. Red alert klaxons blared. Davis sprinted to the bridge, barking orders. "Evasive maneuvers. Return fire!" The Icarus dove and rolled, narrowly avoiding the brunt of the Fangi barrage. Phaser beams lanced out, scoring hits against the enemy's shields. The traitorous Mal Rock's face filled the view screen, her expression triumphant. "Did you really think your little alliance would go unnoticed, Davis? Surrender now, and perhaps General Cragg will be merciful." Davis's expression was resolute. "Like hell. Helm, get us out of here!" Back on the rebel base, Varia made her decision. She strode into the makeshift broadcast center, technicians scrambling to hook up salvaged equipment. "You will confess," she hissed. "You will admit to every failure, every shortcoming of our people, and you will acknowledge humanity's superiority." Turning to her most trusted aide, she said, "Get this transmission on every channel, every frequency across the Empire. I want no one to miss it." Zenos glared at her with such hatred that for a moment it seemed as though he would rather die than comply. But the realization of his precarious situation forced him to comply. The broadcast spread like wildfire through the Fangi Empire, Zenos' admission of defeat and recognition of human superiority echoing in every city and outpost. The shockwaves from this declaration rippled across the galaxy, and the very foundations of the Fangi Empire began to crumble. General Cragg, now the de facto ruler of what remained of the Fangi forces loyal to the old regime, watched in disbelief. His forces, already demoralized, began to desert en masse. Meanwhile, Malrock, now fully aware of the damage caused by Zenos' broadcast, scrambled to consolidate power, but it was too late. The balance of power had irrevocably shifted. As the rebels and their human allies pressed their advantage, Varia knew the time had come for the final strike. "We'll hit them where it hurts the most," she told her assembled generals. Their central command on Fangi Prime. On board the Icarus, Davis received Varia's transmission. "We're with you," he replied, his voice resolute. "Let's end this." As the combined fleet of rebels, human forces, and defected Fangi warships jumped into Fangi Prime's system, they were met with fierce resistance. The space around the planet became a maelstrom of fire and metal, with ships on both sides taking heavy damage. But the tide of battle was turning, and it became clear that the Fangi could not hold out much longer. In the midst of the chaos, Varia's shuttle slipped through the defenses and landed on the surface. She and her team, including Zara, fought their way through the capital's streets, their destination clear, the central command tower. The streets of Fangi Prime were a battleground, with rebel and loyalist forces clashing in brutal hand-to-hand combat. Civilians cowered in their homes, the sounds of war echoing through the once proud capital. As they reached the command tower, Zara turned to Varia. "This is it. We're about to make history." Varia nodded, her expression steely. "For the fallen," she said. They stormed the tower, fighting their way to the command center. Inside, they found Malrock, desperately trying to rally the remaining loyalist forces. "It's over," Varia said coldly, raising her weapon. Malrock sneered. "You think you've won? Even if you kill me, the Fangi Empire will rise again." Varia shook her head. "No. This is the end of the Fangi Empire as you knew it. A new era is beginning, an era of cooperation, of peace." With those words, she pulled the trigger, and Malrock fell, her reign of terror finally over. As the dust settled, Varia stood on the balcony of the command tower, looking out over the city. The fires of battle were dying down, and the first rays of dawn were breaking over the horizon. "We did it," Zara said quietly, joining her. Varia nodded, a sense of profound relief washing over her. "We did, but this is just the beginning. There's a lot of work to be done." The Galactic Council convened an emergency session in the wake of the Fangi Empire's collapse. Representatives from across the galaxy, including humans, Fangi rebels, and other species, gathered to discuss the future. "We have a chance here," Davis said, addressing the assembly. "A chance to build something better than what came before. We've seen what happens when power is concentrated in the hands of a few. Let's not make the same mistake again.